bitch walking around dressed like that, just asking to be shot.
These people are not all powerful. They are, in the end, they are clowns. You have to understand that they're evil clowns, yeah, but they're still clowns. Like, you know, that strategy that they tell orators to do, like imagine your audience naked. Like when you see the World Economic Forum or the Bank of International Settlements or whoever these evil people are making all these plans and talking about, you know, Klaus Schwab, just, you know, imagine him in a clown suit, because that's what they are.
Hi, everybody. This is Crypto Rich, working with you to get rich with crypto. Although we're not going to be talking about decentralized cryptocurrencies, we're going to be talking about CBDCs, central bank digital control systems. But the media will play it like central bank digital currencies. We're going to be talking about what they are and why they will fail, if they will fail. I'm joined by Rafi Farber. Rafi is a... What are you, Rafi?
I don't know. I'm just a guy who philosophizes about money and tries to spread the truth of monetary systems on the world. You know.
Yes, a libertarian. Who's that? I forget the name.
Austrian school
of economics, and I'm learning about that. And actually, Rafi, we weren't going to talk about this, but I think I've told you I'm from the left wing, right? Politically left wing. I've always voted for the left wing parties. But one of the things I've learned from you and also others in this space is what's missing in left discourse, political discourse, is sound money. And I think once you put sound money in, then there's not much difference from left political discourse or libertarian political discourse.
Yeah. I mean, I think ultimately, whether you're left wing or right wing, as long as there's no coercion in society, then
absolutely
you just either happen to be more liberal or conservative in your personal values. But the less political power there is, the more private those decisions are, and nobody has to care.
Yeah, and I think if you and I were to break down, like right down to, you know, what we think about things like education and this and that and stuff, we'd pretty much agree on everything.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah. I think so. My body, my choice.
Or we'd agree, like, you want to educate your kids this way, you send them to this school. I want to educate them that way, I'll send them to this school, and be fine.
Yeah. Or I actually didn't send mine to any school because I didn't want the state to indoctrinate them. They belong to me and my family.
That too.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to talk about central bank digital currencies. And actually, before that, do you want to let people know where they can find you?
Yeah, my main service is the End Game Investor. Type it into any search engine, you'll find it. It's a service through Seeking Alpha, or you can become my patron on Patreon, which is patreon.com/endgameinvestor, where I give a more biblical commentary on these issues, people that are interested in those topics. And my YouTube channel is Rafi Farber, same on Odyssey. Yeah, you'll find me.
That's right. And I'll have those links in the description below, not to the YouTube channel, but to the Odyssey channel.
That's fine.
I'm going to promote that, right? And also Rafi Farber's Twitter account. He is so funny on Twitter. He is very, very funny and amusing on Twitter. So in a good way. So please follow him on Twitter, and I'll have all my links and Crypto Rich Odyssey and all that stuff, right, in the description below as well. Okay. So central bank digital currencies. And I think it was Max Kaiser, I heard him say, or one of his tweets or something, about he referred to them as a central bank digital control system, which is far more accurate. Now, do you want to say what they are, distinct to Bitcoin and other decentralized digital currencies?
Well, okay. So, I mean, imagine Bitcoin or any of the blockchain powered cryptocurrencies, where you can go into the blockchain and see a bird's eye view of every transaction that's ever happened with a given coin. You can't in the Bitcoin world. You can't tell who these transactions are coming from, but you can tell where a certain digital code came from in the whole line. But a central bank digital currency would assign, identity to every transaction, meaning the government would have complete knowledge of every transaction ever made in these things and exactly how much and to whom. So that leads to absolute totalitarianism in the end of society as we know it, pretty quickly.
Yes.
We don't need to go into examples. It's horrifying, and anyone who can't think more than 2 steps deep and won't see it, they are a danger to society. And these things These things, central bank digital currencies, are so horrifying that they cannot possibly last too long before all of society deteriorates and something new sprouts up from the ashes. So
Yep, we will come to that. And the thing that I want to say about central bank digital currencies is they're closed. And if I draw a parallel with the legacy banking system and cash or gold and silver, then it makes it kind of clearer. Like if I could send money from my bank account in the UK to your bank account in Israel. And these are your banking system. If you do online banking and I do online banking, is a closed system that can communicate with each other. It can't communicate with gold and silver or cash transactions. I have to deposit them in there, but otherwise the whole system is closed and it's centrally controlled and regulated by the banks, by the central banks, by government regulation, by whoever determines, and different regulatory authorities. So and then you can't, nobody else can come into my account, strictly speaking, but it's all managed and controlled by the bank, and the same with yours. Now cash, gold and silver in hand, in pocket, can pass around freely from this entity to that entity. You know, there are physical constraints, but there's no overriding, there's no regulatory authority, there's nobody watching every single transaction.
Right.
And that's the difference. So you got the legacy central banking system, which is centralized, and then you've got decentralized money in the form of gold, silver, and cash. Now, if we move it to a central bank digital currency, you've got a centralized closed blockchain, which is overseen by the regulatory authorities, by governments, by central banks, or whoever, and it tracks every single transaction, versus cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin or privacy cryptocurrencies like Monero and Pirate Chain, where people can exchange freely with each other, peer-to-peer, in a way that isn't centrally controlled. So I think that's very, very key. Central bank digital currencies are not decentralized at all. They are centrally controlled. And do you want to say a bit about what sort of transactions they allow the government to track, and then what governments can do with that?
Everything. I mean, they can track anything. If you're buying something that, I mean, look, there's so much horror that I could it's like all exploding into my head. But I mean, for example, they could say, well, there's a new variant of XYZ virus going on, and you have to lock down and go to your house right now. And if you don't, we're going to shut down all of your digital currencies that you can't spend a thing, and you're going to starve to death. They could do that. Or they could, if there's a special tax on real estate, or let's make it something, you know, easier, furniture. There's like a furniture tax now, and you want to get around it. If you're going to go to a furniture store and purchase something that is classified as furniture, you're going to pay that tax. There's no way you can get out of it. Meaning they can tax any transaction they want at zero cost to themselves. All they have to do is cross-reference the blockchain codes and then just take your money. I mean, it gives government pretty much absolute power over every single financial transaction, period. It doesn't matter what you do. Because it's so all powerful and so totalitarian, that's why it wouldn't last long. You know, the Soviet Union didn't last long because it was totalitarian. The Great Leap Forward in China didn't last long. It lasted 4 years before Mao, you know, kind of let up a little bit because the whole country was being destroyed. It lasted 4 years because everybody starved to death. So if they do this and they use the absolute power of CBDCs, it can't last long because nobody would be able to do anything.
Yeah, and it can't last long because it crushes human creativity and ingenuity, which would still manage to leak out somewhere.
Yeah.
But there's more about the central bank digital currency. So they are going to be programmable. And one of the things I think they're trialing in a few cities in China, or they're going to trial, is reducing the amount of money. So if, for example, Ruffy has $100 in his account, then the central bank or the government are then able to say, okay, we are going to take 0.5% of whatever's in Rafi's account. If Rafi had $100 in his bank account, the government or the central bank, the regulatory authority, likely to be governments, are going to be able to take, let's say, 0.5% every single day from his bank account. So it's $99.5, and then it goes down by 0.5% the following day and 0.5% following day. And now, in that instance, Rafi, why would governments want to do that? And what would it have people? How would people respond to that?
Well, why would governments want to do it? They would want to do it if to, in their eyes, prevent a recession, because they see everything numerically, a very shallow view of what an economy actually is. They just look at aggregated numbers and then say, oh, the number's smaller, we're not doing as well. The number's bigger, we're doing better. So if they can incentivize people to spend in ways they wouldn't otherwise spend, then you can get the GDP numbers up because people are spending more money. But how would that get people to respond? Well, if they know that they're losing value on their CBDCs, they would just spend faster, and it would bring the GDP up like really, really high, but it wouldn't bring the real goods and services supply up higher. It would just cause people to consume what exists now. Just because, look, if somebody's stealing from you, right? If somebody has their hand in your pocket and you can't get it out of there, then you'll take whatever is in your pocket and you'll exchange it for a real good or service that they can't take from you.
Yeah.
So it will bring the value of the currency down to zero a lot faster. And once that happens, then it doesn't matter what they do with the CBDC. Once it is zero, then you cannot restart it. You have to go back to the base of the pyramid, which is, again, the metals.
Okay. So they want to get people spending, velocity of money, keeping the money moving through the economy. It also prevents people from saving.
Yeah.
And then you can't have any sort of capital investment because people can't accrue capital. So then I think that would lead to, well, eventually the economy would grind down, but it wouldn't get to that because you say the value would go to zero. Explain that, Rafi. I don't understand that. How and why would it go to zero?
Well, just like in any hyperinflationary economy, the value does go to zero. Through either money printing or just people losing confidence in the currency. But really, when the assets that back every currency is backed. There's no such thing as an unbacked currency. All currencies are backed by something, right? Because even now, central banks, when they bring currency into existence, they are buying an asset in order to bring that into existence. The Fed, how does it bring currency into existence? It says, I'm going to buy government bonds and put them on my balance sheet and give the government these dollars in exchange for those bonds. So the bonds and the dollars are backed by the bonds, the treasuries. That's how they're backed. So when the treasuries fall to zero, the value of the money that backs that is on the other side of that falls to zero. And then when that value falls to zero, then the currency is the main tool by which governments control society. But so when their currency no longer has any value, people have to use something that is not in their control, or they will starve to death. They won't be able to buy food because you can't buy food with a currency that's worthless. So you'll need something else to buy food with, or you can just stop eating. It's one of the other things. So like it forces, when a currency is worthless, it forces people to preserve their lives. They have to get out of the government system because the government system is now worthless. And the government itself, how do they keep everything in line? They pay their thugs and their cronies.
Hold on a second.
Are you on a natural
people, the ones who enforce all of the regulations, including CBDC itself, they pay them with the CBDC. So if the CBDC is worthless, they can't pay the people who they need to uphold their tower of power. So the entire government falls apart also. And then you have a collapse, and then everyone has to reorganize into smaller groups and figure out how to create goods and services again in exchange for some kind of medium of exchange where you can create a division of labor again. So
Okay.
what happens in that situation? You have to go back to what everything is based on, and that is in the end gold and silver. Exactly how? Could it be through a blockchain? Could it be through paper cash? It could be through anything, but it has to be based on that.
Yeah. Okay. And is it that people are getting rid of the money as quickly as possible because the government are taking a little bit every at source in order to get people to spend.
Yeah,
that diminishes the value. Like, I've got to get rid of this. Like, what's it? Gresham's law. People spend the bad money first.
yeah, the money the money that is artificially overvalued first. They use that money first, and then they hoard the artificially undervalued money, and they don't spend that. So if you incentivize people to get rid of it, they will get rid of it, and they'll buy hard assets, and eventually you'll run out of hard assets, and you'll have only money left. But when there's only money and no hard assets, the money can't buy anything, so you get rid of it.
Right. Okay. Now, I think there are many governments around the world that are developing CBDC, central bank digital control systems. I know the UK is, Israel is, the United States, China, the European Union have said they're going to do that. Nigeria has now said that they're limiting the amount that people can take out from ATMs in order to encourage people to use the eNaira, their electronic CBDC, their central bank digital control system. And when you were saying earlier about tracking some of the purchases, some of the ideas that have been mooted that the CBDCs will allow governments to do is to shape how people spend and what they spend on, like you said, but it include things like a carbon tracker.
Yeah.
So Duconomy have developed a digital payment card that has a carbon tracker on it. And then that becomes a proxy for human activity. So if I travel too far, they can say, okay, you use this many emissions, therefore you've used too much of your carbon credits, you're not allowed to travel anymore. Or if I go and purchase some lamb, oh no, that uses too much carbon dioxide emissions, you can't buy any more lamb. You have to eat bugs or buy
Exactly.
vegetables or something.
Yes, they're putting us all in a digital prison by doing this. But again, like, yeah, it's horrible, but it cannot last long. So when we talk about this, I'm not trying to give you a nightmare. We shouldn't be worrying about this too much, because when they try to get this much power, they will collapse. I mean, it's not something you have to have faith in, though faith helps. But it's something that once you realize logically it cannot be sustained, it can't, then the only question is, how long can they keep it going? How much pain is it going to cause? Can you live through it until it collapses? And what are you going to do once it does? That's what you got to be focusing on, instead of like being scared about, all this horror that's going to happen. It's going to happen, but it can't last long.
Okay, but Rafiq, they'd have worked this out, won't they? That the money will lose value if they tax it at source.
So that's more of a broader question. Do these people know that what they're planning is impossible? And I don't know, because I don't understand how their minds work or what they're really thinking, because I'm not a power hungry guy. It's the last thing I want. I don't want to be in charge of anybody's life. So if I try to get into somebody's head where that's what he really wants, is he really that stupid that he can't see that once he has absolute power, he has absolutely nothing? I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that from what I understand of power systems, it seems like it's always every man for himself, and they're always trying to claw to get to the top, and they don't really care who they step over to get to the top. And once they're on the top, then someone else is going to knock them over, and they're not really thinking about long-term, health of society. They don't really care about it. They just care about getting to the top. So my thought is, like, they haven't really thought about these things. They're just using them as a way to get to the top, and then they're not even thinking about how long they can sustain it once they're there. I don't think they have any idea what they're doing.
Okay,
Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, somebody with a more political mind than me can say, oh, well, there's a genius out there that has everything, planned out, and he'll be able to triangulate his power for whatever, a few months before he falls. I don't know, maybe, but I don't think
well,
so.
I can definitely get that there'll be way too much resistance when people get it. And then the whole thing about human ingenuity and creativity, and that sort of authoritarian, totalitarian control that a central bank digital control system will bring in, it stultifies society. It's dead. It kills all the creativity. If you look at the innovation and vitality in the United States when they did have sound money, versus the deadening atmosphere and progress of the Soviet Union and the Warsaw Pact countries, because everything was so suppressed and controlled that you kill creativity.
Yes.
And then you can't have progress. You don't come up with solutions. You have, some idiot at the top telling everybody how to live their lives, but the idiot at the top is just an idiot. Different idiot to how you and I are idiots, right? But differently flawed, but all flawed, saying, hey, listen, I know what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is, Rafi. I don't think you do either, other than let people be free.
Yeah. I wanted it might help to take a step back, right?
Sure.
And one thing I keep in mind from the book of Ecclesiastes by King Solomon is there's nothing new under the sun. Like there's nothing qualitatively different about blockchain over, let's say, the current digital dollar system that we have. When you look at a number in your bank account, it's also digital, just a different kind of digital. There's no difference between that and, let's say, the innovation of using paper for the first time as a receipt for gold and silver instead of actually carrying coins in your pocket and handing them to a vendor, right? So at the at the advent of paper receipts as cash, people say, wow, this is great. It's so convenient because you can carry a lot more in your pocket. You don't have to risk losing a whole bunch of gold or silver. They could be like traveler's checks. Maybe if they get robbed, you can shut down the serial number. I don't know, whatever. In any case, they're more convenient and people loved them. But then so that speeds up innovation because you don't have to worry about the coins losing metal, right? So it speeds up the market. It makes it more efficient using paper cash instead of gold and silver, because as long as the cash is faithful and 100% backed, as long as you're not lying. So then the government says, oh, look at this paper. We can take the gold and say, oh, use our paper. And then, say, oh, it'll be 100% back. Sure, trust us. And then they start printing. And from there you have inflation. So yeah, government always comes in on the new technology created by the free market and starts stealing from people through that technology. Whether they do it through paper cash or they do it through CBDC, it's the same process, right? Humanity came up with this new technology called blockchain. It was very innovative, and there's all these advantages to it, and great, Bitcoin, wonderful, etc. And then government said, "Oh, that looks great. Let's do it," and then steal from everybody. It's the same thing. It's just faster now and scarier.
Which actually could also mean that it collapses faster.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I understand how governments steal, but do you want to spell it out for people who may not be clear about that idea, that by printing money, governments are stealing from people?
Well, when humans trade, right? If I have something that you want, and you have something that I want, I give you that something in exchange for something that you give me. So we both gain, right? Then I'm wealthier because of you, and you're wealthier because of me. We exchanged. And if we can use like something intermediary like gold and silver to account for that value that someone else at the end of the line is going to use, and use that as an accounting trick. If we can't trade directly, that's monetary systems over barter. But essentially, when you create a money or a money substitute out of nothing, when you create a substitute for that gold and silver out of absolutely nothing, and say, oh, here's a receipt that I just made up, and now give me, and now I'll give this to you in exchange for that thing that I want to buy from you, then I'm getting something of value and you are getting nothing, right? So that means that society is now poorer. So when they create money substitutes that are supposed to represent gold and silver, and they represent nothing, they can take stuff out of the economy by spending that into it. And now the world has more receipts for stuff that doesn't exist and less stuff for themselves to use. Therefore, everyone gets poorer, except for the person who steals. In the end, if they accomplish everything they want to accomplish, then they have everything in the world. Everyone else has nothing. Therefore, they all die and they have everything. And then once everyone dies, then they won't be able to take anymore, and they die too. That's the ultimate logical conclusion of what they're doing. And it can't continue. At some point, the immune system of society wakes up and purges them.
Yes. Yeah, I detect a certain bitterness and disdain in your tone there, Rafi.
Yeah.
Well merited. Well merited. Okay. So I remember one of the points you made is that the hyperinflation. So one is I can get it that that people will want to get rid of the money. They'll want to get rid of this CBDC because it's diminishing value, or because even if governments don't do that, it leaves them vulnerable to being surveilled fully. And I think what will happen is people will come up with alternative means of transacting, which could be privacy cryptos. Could even be tangible goods like tins of sardines or cigarettes or cans of beer, whatever people decide has value. Because especially, I think in the West, people don't have, certainly in Europe, apart from Germany and Austria, people don't recognize the value of gold and silver.
Yeah. Do you have, like, if you're talking about everyone recognizes the value of gold and silver because somebody else recognizes. Maybe they don't recognize it directly, but eventually you have market prices that come to a decision on what these things are. But what you were saying about the carbon footprint, right? Even off the bat, even if they don't take money out of your account directly, if you know that you're going to go to the gas station and you're going to, pump a certain amount of liters or whatever, or you're going to charge your battery a certain amount of money, and now it goes on your credit, your carbon score, you're going to be incentivized to find people who will exchange carbon rich whatever for your underground monetary thing, right? It's going to be incentivized. By having everything known and attached to a carbon chain, you're going to incentivize people to use other money. That is going to devalue the CBDC and raise the value of the money that everyone's going to use in exchange for that.
Yes.
So everything about this causes the CBDC to lose value very quickly, which is why I don't even think it will last, even a year. It's not going to. I hope I'm right. I don't know. I don't want to live in a hellscape for that long. I'm sorry.
No. And I actually wonder if they have enough access to resources to implement the system, because they're going to need silver, they're going to need copper, they're going to need lithium. And if all these countries and steel, and if all these countries are going around to implement CBDCs, they're going to need all the QR codes, the monitoring stations, the entry points. And in Europe, we have no energy because of our suicidal sanctions against Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the prices of those metals is going to keep going up, and they're going to get more and more expensive against a falling currency, because the euro and the pound are toast. From my read of what's going on in the world, Rafi. Do you want to say something about that?
Yeah, that the prices of everything are going to go up. Yes, the price of everything will go up. And also, you said something about stifling human creativity. If you stifle creativity, you stifle the production of things. You're also hitting the supply side of the goods and services that these CBDCs can buy. So you're, at the one hand, you're pushing down the supply, you're lowering the demand for the money. Everything about this speeds up the process of hyperinflation. When people make the argument like, oh, once they have complete control, they'll be able to control how much you can buy, and therefore they'll be able to preserve the system for as long as they want. That is complete nonsense. Like, you can theoretically even tell people the prices. You can say, okay, now the entire price array of everything as it is today, December 26, 2022, now by law, no prices can change right now. And if you change prices, we're going to arrest you. Could they theoretically do that? Yeah, they could. Right. And then what would happen? Like, whatever happens when you have complete price controls, the production of everything stops. So you can't, there's no way they can get around economic law, no matter how amazing the technology is. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm happy about that. These people are not all powerful. They are, in the end, they are clowns. You have to understand that they're evil clowns. Yeah.
Send in those soulful and doleful schmaltz by the bowlful. clowns.
But they're still clowns. Like, you know, what's that strategy that they tell orators to do, like imagine your audience naked. Like when you see the World Economic Forum or the Bank of International Settlements or whoever these evil people are making all these plans and talking about, you know, Klaus Schwab, just, you know, imagine him in a clown suit, because that's what they are.
Stupid son of a bitch walking around dressed like that, just asking to be shot.
To tie it together with
Blank.
and biometric IDs, because people may not see the connection, but what the
Blank.
And the-
Blank.
did was it made it somehow acceptable and palatable and necessary to have biometric digital IDs. So you have a biometric digital ID in the form of a
Blank.
pass, which is on your mobile phone, and then to say that, and it's connected to me, to my health records, which are distinct to your health records, because we're distinct people, and therefore it's not something like we can just be passed around, and it's digital with a QR code, and then they can attach a central bank digital currency in a digital wallet to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they can say, okay, well, Rafi bought this and Rich bought this, and okay, we're not going to let them go this far. They've already spent too much, and Rafi and Rich are giving money to political organizations that we don't support, opposition groups. Therefore, we're going to penalize them for that, or we'll prevent them from doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And just on that, was it Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand is saying that people who you like this, Rafi, you know about this, right?
No, you mentioned her name. She's just despicable, that woman. Oh my God.
Oh, stop it, you. It wasn't that bad.
Yes, she is. And here's one of the things that the New Zealand government are announcing they're going to do is that, and in fact, they're printing booklets that anybody who opposes the government's
Blank. 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 Blank.
policies, who questions them, is a domestic terrorist.
Yeah.
Which completely gets rid of any viable political opposition. Now, with a central bank digital control system, they'll be able to enforce that even further by penalizing people. But then what will happen is that people will gravitate towards other forms of value transfer, privacy, cryptos, cigarettes, gold, silver, whatever that the market will decide has value.
Yeah.
And then the value of the CBDCs will go down, because nobody will want them. Or we can use them, for innocuous purchases.
Yeah.
Like, I'll go and buy some, I don't know what the government will let me buy. Maybe it'll let me buy some formula or milk made from insects or something, cockroach milk.
Yeah, but that won't be possible, because who's going to want to produce that stuff if that's the only stuff that's being bought with the worthless money? You're going to want to be making more money by producing non-innocuous things. I mean, you can't section off what a money would have value buying, but it won't have value buying this, but it'll have buying everything mixes together. I mean, it's not possible.
Yes, except I'm sure you know about the war against meat. That they're
yeah, absolutely, I know about that. Yeah,
they want to get rid of meat production and then replace it with factory farmed insects.
So one more thought I have flying around in my head is that okay, so there's one of two ways that things can go here. So you could say that maybe okay, we're going to come together and we're going to stop this CBDC and we're going to halt the march of power at this point, and then from there we're going to be able to stop it and we'll continue at this level of liberty indefinitely. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think that that at some point they're going to reach a level of power, because it always goes in this direction. There's no stopping it, but they reach a level of power that causes a reset, not on their terms, but a reset in terms of the collapse of the power structure. That's where we are going. And exactly when and exactly how, we don't know, but I don't think we're going to stop their game in the tracks and then hold it indefinitely at this, let's say, this point in time. They're going to keep amassing more and more power. We're not going to be able to stop them until they amass it to a certain point where they collapse. And then from that point, we will have the power again and we'll be able to reorganize, which is what we should be aspiring to do.
Yes, and I actually think they'll collapse before. And why I say that, I just got to say, by the way, for everybody who's watching, I'm not at home. I didn't bring my lights. I'm in my niece's bedroom on the floor, and I'm using the sunlight through a window with panes in it.
Yeah, you look very artistic right now.
That's right. You can see my good side. Was it my good side or my dark side here? Oh dear. But I actually think it's going to collapse before. And why I think it's going to collapse before is because of the amount of the growing level of opposition and awareness.
Yeah.
That there is. You know, I was watching a video earlier of Patients for Doctors for Patients UK, which is a growing group of doctors who are talking about the harms of the COVID injections.
Mm-hmm.
So then people are waking up to how they've been lied to as more and more people die suddenly. More, you know, was it a 9-year? I saw on Twitter a 9-year-old
Mm-hmm.
died of a heart attack.
Yeah.
9-year-olds don't die of heart attacks. It's heartbreaking. And as that becomes more and more commonplace, and you know, that kid's family and friends, and they realize and stuff that we've been lied to, we can't trust these people about anything, then we can't trust them about anything. And then I think people start questioning and examining and say, okay, well, what's this about? What's this about central bank digital control systems?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, look, I think things are looking good. Look, they're amassing more and more power, but they are losing the minds of more and more people that are waking up and that are figuring this out. You know, just one parallel I could say is during the depths of this insanity, of this forced medical experimental craziness that really scared me.
And me.
Yeah, I did not, you know, give my kids
Blank?
and during that time they were isolated and made fun of, and you know, they even had, you know, I sent them to school once and the teacher slammed the door in their face because I refused to give them a test which they needed that day to get into school. I would not do any of it, and they got embarrassed, and I'm thinking like, okay, but this is going to isolate them and make them pariahs. But now that I think about it, like we're seeing all this infertility show up and fertility levels going down, and the people that submitted to this stuff getting sicker and sicker. Well, yeah, it was hard during that year, but you know, when they're looking for a match to get married, I could see it being significantly easier to get married because, you know, the
Blank?
will find each other quicker and they'll have similar experiences when they were children at this age. It could be a lot easier for them to find a good spouse with you know, that already those values filtered in.
Yep. And then I've noticed, I don't know, Rafi, a difference in attitude, because I had the same fears. I was working as a social worker. I thought, what if they make it mandatory for government employees? How am I going to provide for my children? How am I going to provide, you know, for my family? There's no way I'm going to have that thing inside me. There's just no way. It's not going to happen. But now I notice that people are way more receptive.
Yeah.
Anecdotally, it is the ones who've been
Blank.
who are getting ill again and again and again and again and again. And then I've got friends and family turning around and saying to me, look, I wish I'd listened. I regret having it. I really regret having it. And I'm sure there's many more who won't own up to that.
Yeah.
But regret quietly to themselves.
It's all connected. It all comes down to money. And with the healing of one will really lead to the healing of the other. We're on a fault line of human civilization. These years are the fault line. What we are heading into, it's got to be better. And
We're just something to bring it back to money.
Yeah.
This is what happens when money dies.
Yes.
There's a monetary collapse, and the whole world is going through a collapse of the global monetary system.
Yes.
You know, it was similarly disruptive when the British Empire was on its last legs in the early part of the 20th century, which led to the First World War, and then a few years later down the line, the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
Same deal right now with the American Empire on its last legs, and a shift.
Or the Roman Empire. When the Roman Empire collapsed, it reorganized all of Europe, and that took It took 1,000 years to reorganize. I hope it won't take that
Fingers
long.
crossed, Rafi.
Yeah.
With the internet and digital money, it'll be a whole lot quicker. Life just happens so much quicker nowadays, right?
So yeah.
Yeah. Now, do you want to say, I didn't ask you for this, right? But it just occurred to me. Do you just want to say a little bit about what's happening with gold and silver in the last few months or so?
What's happening?
Yeah, well, the price has been going upwards, right?
Yeah, the price has been going up. Well, I think that that gold and silver, they look forward into what's happening in the monetary sphere. So if they're going up, that means the dollar's purchasing power is going down, which means we're getting close to the final pivot when prices of assets really collapse and the Fed has to print in order to keep the pyramid from imploding. So I think there's going to be one more round of printing and that'll be it. I think it's going to be within the next few months because I don't see this lasting much longer. I mean, we're seeing stock prices go down. Once they really start crashing and bond prices with it, the Fed either has to print or die, and they're going to choose to print.
Right, right. And then that will also disable their capacity to bring in the central bank digital control system because they're not going to have the fiat to be able to, like you said, pay for people to do the work. For their towers of power.
Yes, hopefully the dollar collapses, the dollar's value collapses before they can institute central bank digital control systems, because the CBDC will be based on the value of the dollar today. Hopefully the value of the dollar today will fall to nothing before these systems even come into existence. That would be the best.
Yep. Rafi, thank you. Is there anything else you want to say?
No, I'm good.
Rafi, listen, thank you so much. I do enjoy having you back on. At some point soon, no doubt you'll be back on. This is going to be on my channel and also on Rafi's channel. If you have any comments or questions, put them in the description below. If there's anything you think we've missed out, follow Rafi wherever he is. I'll have his links, and follow me wherever I am. And between now and I see you next, please keep filling your pockets with precious metal profits.
Yeah.
This is Crypto Rich and Gold Rafi signing out. All the best. Bye-bye.
Have a good day.